Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is a free speech on air. My name is Francis Capelli and I'm reporting to you all the way out of Holland, the Netherlands, this small and pretty hard to find country on the map. But most of you heard of it, of course, because we have Amsterdam, the red light district, coffee shops, and you can smoke pot on the streets without getting arrested, and that's what most people like, and they consider this a free country. It is not. In the first episode called Holland, the New Berlin, I explained to you that this country is the remainder of the Adolf Hitler administration. It's truly active today. It's the Nazi regime active today. It's in all our laws. Our laws were, the blueprint for the state of Holland was drafted by the Nazis during the 5 years of occupation we had here, and the government never dismantled it. So we deal with that fact. And then there is this crazy other thing, this widespread pedophilia that we notice in the entire country. And it's not only the pedophilia that is committed by those in power, but it's the compliance of the people. The compliance of the people, this conspiracy of nationwide silence that we have here, and it's a mystery to me. It always was. But before we go into that, I want to tell you a little bit about free speech on air, because it's not a show of any kind. It's not a radio show or a talk show. It has no audience. It has no, I don't receive donations. There's no staff working to create this program. There's just me, a average guy, I guess, Dutch guy, and a voice recorder. But I did many episodes of free speech on air. I named it in such a way that it could be a show, in order to draw people into it. And to my amazement and to my surprise, it started to build a steady audience in Holland, and more people started to listen and even react and sometimes respond to it. And after 200 plus episodes or so, I felt like, well, I told you everything I knew, and I told you things that you could notice yourself if you would choose to open your eyes and just look around you, look at your surroundings and think about things and try to make sense, whatever that is these days, of the things you see and notice. And there was no reason for me to continue it anymore. But one of the people who was always tuning in or listening in was my good friend Fred Swemmer, a Dutch guy also, but he lives in Utah, close to Salt Lake City. And because of the fact that he lives in the States and he has many friends, he had friends on his Facebook who didn't understand a word, of course, of this Dutch mumbo jumbo. I decided maybe it is time to try and speak English and see if you could get the whatever point, see if you can get it across into a wider audience. You see, I think it's key if we speak out against the tyrannical governments, against the New World Order, against geopolitics in general, against a economy that is nothing else. The economy is not even a it's not even a right word. It's just economy is just a description of the brutal crimes committed by the establishment, by the banks and the big corporations. To me, the word economy is another word for financial genocide. So many people here in Holland are suffering already. So many people are brought down to the brink of, losing their house, losing everything. So economy, that's almost it almost sounds like a curse. It's not something you it's not something that you want, basically. We need to get rid of it. The kind of economy that rules today is a virus, it's a cancer, it's eating away, it's chipping away all the things that make a nation or a people great. It's eating away intellect, it draws blood, it kills, it provokes wars, it creates disasters. It's just unbelievable what economy really is. It's the beast. It's the heart of the beast. It's almost like a satanic force. It's a dark force that is so powerful that even the brightest sunlight gets, well, it almost jokes the living daylights out of the sun. That's how thick this darkness really is. If you ask me, that is. So the Dutch version of free speech on air, it was just me talking about a lot of things that I thought were pretty important, because if we want to save humanity, we have to dig it out first. Humanity, in my opinion, it is buried under a wide barrage of technical devices and ways. You see, humanity is not an easy thing to find anymore. It's a disconnected mass. It's almost a critical mass. It's a mass of individuals walking the streets with earplugs in or headphones on, focusing on the screens, whether the screens of smartphones or tablets. But it's a huge mass that is not capable to connect anymore. It seems to connect. It seems to have the foundation of it became a virtual foundation, a virtual connection. But what if the internet dies off? What if tomorrow we would wake up and find out that there is no Google anymore? There is no Facebook page anymore. There is just this black screen. What if we tomorrow would not be able to connect to the internet? How many people do you actually know? And where do they live? Did you ever really meet the people that you thought were on your side in this battle against darkness, against the establishment? Think about that for a while. So I created Free Speech on Air to talk about things like that I find it pretty important, if not the most important thing, that we should be on the streets talking to anybody basically about the things we see. Because there is one thing that is as clear to me as water, that the internet did not spill out, the contents of the internet did not spill out on the streets. If I walk the streets in my hometown or wherever in Holland, I don't see any signs of revolution. I don't see a society that's on the brink of breakdown. I don't see a populace that is so fed up, so angry on the government that it is willing to do whatever it takes to get rid of them. I don't see any of that. I only see virtual complaints, virtual wars, virtual things, but in reality there is this insane lack of real response to be noticed in the entire Dutch society that to me cannot be explained. It came to the point that this is one of the biggest mysteries I ever stumbled on. To me, Holland is a bigger mystery than the Bermuda Triangle or whatever, or a black hole, because it doesn't matter what comes up here, it will disappear in this vacuum of silence. There is this nationwide conspiracy of silence that rules this place. It's a conspiracy of silence, of compliance even, that rules this country. And this is not, I'm not trying to sell you some points. This is just what it is. This is what each and everybody could notice if they would walk the streets here, or if they would go out and talk to the people in general. They don't want to talk about the true issues. They don't want to talk about the fact that we are on the brink of financial collapse. Because if this country would be a company, one of the big corporations, if this would be a big corporation, then this would be the kind of corporation that would fail. It would be a dying corporation. This corporation dies off pretty quick. And why is that? Because the average income of the general public goes down while the prices go up. They need to spend more and more and more money, and more people are struggling to survive. And if once you're in a process like that, you can't sustain whatever it is that rules here. It will collapse. It will explode right in our faces. I am convinced of that. All the things that, like the things that we have seen here on mainstream television, oh, don't worry about it, the economy, it will be all right. It will grow stronger again. Well, that's just a pile of shit as high as the Mount Everest. Because you cannot cure what is so sick. There's no cure for it. So, alright. Free speech on air the Dutch version of it dealt with all kinds of topics. But also, it was one of the major points, finding back yourself. You want to save humanity, you have to help dig it out first. It's buried in this virtual barrage of news and facts and things, but it needs to get real first. I always stated that if I would show you a burning town or a burning house, if I would put that into the public domain, that would not cause the flames to extinguish. The fact of showing us a burning house is not extinguishing it. It's not the same. It's just reporting. It's just a report. That's it. But the strange thing is that internet is a place where The World Wide Web, the public domain, it's a place, it became a place where people actually started to believe that by showing the problems, they were, somehow healing it. Many people believe that showing a problem is not only, it's not only a display of whatever it is that we are showing, but it's also the remedy. And I'm against that. I don't believe in that. And it's not that I don't believe it because, it seems so far-fetched, it seems so out of place with common sense. No, I don't believe it because the world itself shows us that the wars and the crimes and all the other things that we could relate to the New World Order become bigger and getting an even more tighter stronghold on this planet and each and every person than before. Now, let me tell you something that caused a lot of people to dislike me in Holland. We have, of course, the alternative media here. We have the same thing as you guys have overseas. You guys have InfoWars, and you have the Drudge Report, and you have this, and you have that. You have all those major outlets that of news. You have those free presses over there. We have it here also. In this country it was Klokkenluider Online. It means something like whistleblower online. That was one of the top dogs, one of the top players in, well, this InfoWars thing. Micha Kat was his name, and he called himself the Dutch version of Alex Jones. He called himself at many occasions the Dutch version of Alex Jones. Micha Kat. Micha Kat. M-I-C as in cat, H-A, and then his last name Kat. K-A-T. Which actually spells cat in our language, by the way. But anyway though, he proclaimed he was the Dutch version of Alex Jones. But then I found out that the major sites, the major news outlets in our country were directly connected to the United Nations. And I could not believe that it was so. I checked it, I double checked it. But the guys who worked here in the, well, in what should we call it, in the free press, the so-called free press, the so-called opposite of the mainstream media, the Dutch version of the InfoWars body, all those guys who played a major role in that were somehow connected to the United Nations. And I found that not only truly suspicious, I found it crazy as a donkey. Because here they were, on their own sites, claiming that the United Nations was nothing but the takeover of the world. It was basically the headquarters of the New World Order. That's how they considered it. I do too, by the way. And then at the other hand, they were working for that organization. So they were operatives of that same proclaimed New World Order. They were working for them. And to me, that's just, it's just incredible. This can't be happening. But it happened. excuse me, I have to ignore the sound that you hear is actually the ringing of my doorbell, and I will ignore it because I want to finish what I started off in the first place. So here we are, free speech on air. I discovered that all our so-called free media outlets were directly or indirectly somehow connected to the United Nations. And as soon as I started to report on that, they did exactly what the government expect to do. They played the insanity card. They played they even called me a conspiracy theorist. Wow, and that was really funny because this, if you really look at it, we deal with conspiracies each and every day. I mean, Alex Jones is talking about all those government conspiracies. The Drudge Report, all the other major news outlets, they prove to us that there is no such a thing as conspiracy theory, but conspiracy fact. Because what is conspiracy anyway? It's working together towards a goal of some sort. And whether you do that in the open or you decide to do that secretively, doesn't matter. Conspiracy of silence, it is true for this country. We are all involved in this silence, this, being silent, being almost a willing accomplice to whatever it is that's happening here. Working together without having any agreement. But if you can actually go out and connect our alternative media to the major players, the organized players, if you can connect them to the United Nations, which I could do because they had admitted it in their own statements, but I didn't notice it at first, but they admitted it in their own statements. They had links on their site to the Emma building, which is the Emma building in Holland. It is based in Utrecht, and it's the only building that contains the UN library, for instance. It's a part of the UN, and there they were using that building to tell us what was happening. But they did more than just reporting on it. What they wanted us to do is to engage in basically in violence. We had to burn down newspaper stands. We had to burn down newspaper stands. They expected us to go out there and pull judges out of their courts and beat them to a pulp, calling them names. You see, Holland, by definition, is a Nazi state. It really works like that. We have this staatsrecht 1940-41, which translated comes down to the right of the state 1940-1941. It was forced upon us by the Nazis during the 5 years occupation. But we also are, and I'm truly convinced of that, and it may sound completely insane, it may sound completely crazy, but we also are, according to Deterding, he was the former owner of the Shell of Shell. He was the former owner of Shell. He was a great friend of the Dutch royals. And he told us a long time ago that the key to all the world problems was buried in Holland. Well, if you really look at our country, this was the birthplace of the Bilderbergers. This was the birthplace of those secretive meetings that we now see happening all over the globe. This was the birthplace of it all. Today it is openly admitted, it's even in our law, that we are the functioning Nazi state of Europe, fully functional, a complete tribute to, well, the Berlin during towards Berlin during the days that Hitler reigned. And then we have this crazy phenomena here that our so-called free press was, in many instances, directly related to the United Nations. Now think about that. And when I started to see how big the problem is, how well hidden some things really are, how well planned it is, I decided to inform the public about it, because this is something that we have to share. We have to share the knowledge. And you have to, that's why I do it in episodes that are not, that I will do this in episodes. If you remember this, what I told you just now, you will understand the following episode. It deals with pedophilia in high places, but it also deals with the conspiracy of silence that we were noticing in Holland during the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. It is key to have this knowledge first, that we are the Nazi state, that our so-called free press, our so-called internet press, is directly rooted into the belly of the United Nations. To understand the next episode that will be uploaded maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, as soon as I find the time for it. And that's about the Deming case, the Joris Deming case. And you might not know who Deming was or is, but if you search, you have to understand that this case, a pedophilia and child trafficking case, conducted by the higher levels of our government, was a case that even made it to the United States of America, because the Rebecca Project was seeking a way of banning this guy, Joris Deming, preventing him from entering the United States ever again. So banning was discussed by a committee, and you can find all those things, Joris Deming, just Google it. And I want to ask Fred to provide some links towards, or Dolly to provide some links and put them under this upload, put them underneath the box, so the American people can go out, and the English people and the Canadian people can go out and look into this matter for themselves. But I will tell you something that was never mentioned about the Deming case. The Deming case it's even to be found on Infowars.com, because Joseph Paul Watson picked it up. He picked it up, and he wrote a couple of articles about it. But I'm going to tell you something that Infowars failed to mention. They didn't look at it, and I don't blame them, because this country, Holland, is a cesspool of lies. It's almost the headquarter of lies. So they didn't know what they actually were writing about. And the next episode is about Joris Demming. He was like the Edgar Hoover of the Netherlands. He was the bearer of royalty secrets. He had a major position in our government. He was directly responsible for the entire police apparatus. The entire police apparatus of the Netherlands, but also responsible for the courts, the Immigration and Naturalization Department, the secret police, all that. He was basically the chief of it all, the general, the Secretary General of it all. And this guy was involved in child trafficking and even in pedophilia and killing. I'm going to talk about the Joris Demming case in the next episode, but it is key to remember a couple of things that I told you. That Holland is the Nazi state, a full-scale Nazi state, including all the laws, all the executive branches of the Nazi machinery. This is the headquarters, and it is still operational. It is still operational today. It's not only a recorded fact in history, it's just what it is. It is everything like that in the juridical sense. So, remember that. Remember that our so-called free press, our Dutch version of Infowars.com, and a lot of other sites were directly routed into the United Nations, were directly connected. And you will understand more about the Demming case. I'm going to tell you about that one as soon as I come to it. This was Free Speech on Air for today. I salute